Evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's study session meeting for Sunnyside City Council for today, October 6, 2025. For the record, all members of staff are present as required, and we've got a couple of extra attorneys present. Welcome to those of you who are in person and on the live stream. We are missing a couple of council members. Councilor Frausto said she may not be able to make it and is asking for an excused absence in the event that she can't be here. Is there any objection to excusing Councilor Frausto? Okay, no objection. She is excused. And Councilor Hart, I haven't heard a word from her at all yet, so I don't know. Council, do you want to wait till the end of the meeting or? Okay, yeah. We'll wait till the end of the meeting and I will make a note over here. Okay. Next item is the agenda approval, and we do have a request to move the executive session to the beginning of the agenda. Is there any objection to that? I know we like to have it at the end, but on a study session with a small audience, it doesn't mean moving quite as many people out the door. Councilor Hart is here. Good. So we will move the executive session to the beginning. And then we will, after the executive session, resume the agenda as presented. We do have to vote on that. What is the desire of council on that item?
Someone.
I'll second.
All right. So we've got a motion by Councilor Hancock, second to the deputy mayor, to approve the agenda as modified to put the executive session at the beginning. Is there debate on this item?
No.
Hearing none, we'll allow Councilor Hart to reach her chair so she can vote as well. All right. So, Councilor Hancock.
Yes.
Councilor Ripley.
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilor Hart.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
I too vote yes. Motion passes. All right. Active agenda. We're going to go into the executive session. We are requesting 20 minutes to begin. Executive session pertains to the following: RCW 42.30.1101I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party.
Would you shut up?
When public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in adverse legal.
Okay, cool.
Excuse me?
I was just asking her to take her computer.
Okay, we could do that. I'm done. Likely to become a party when the public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. No action is expected. All right, and we are in session.
The recording and unlock the meeting. One moment. Recording is on. I've unlocked the meeting and you're ready whenever.
All right, we'll give staff an opportunity to find their seats, and we are back in open session. Thank you everyone for your patience and for waiting. That took longer than we had originally programmed, but this was all necessary time and there were some very important and very good questions asked. So there is no action being taken after the executive session. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, receive a presentation on wastewater utility improvement project with Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, this is your presentation, correct?
It is. Thank you for having me this evening. So the purpose of this presentation tonight is the city received funding through the Department of Ecology's SRF program. A couple years back, we've been working on a couple different projects under that contract. And one of the provisions of that funding agreement is that you have a public presentation to discuss the project, offer the opportunity to answer questions, and discuss a couple specific items. And so as soon as the presentation is up, I can go through that. And I don't think there's much in the way of new information tonight. It's mostly what's the current status of the project and where we're at as far as schedule and so forth. So next slide. So as I mentioned, so the original funding amount is for a little over $1.1 million. Half of that is forgivable principal, which is Ecology's way of saying grant without using the word grant. And then the other half is a 20-year loan. And there's actually a task order amendment that we will be bringing as soon as we get a little further along, having to do with basically the schedule of the project, nothing with the the design fees themselves, more about the fact that because of available funding, what was originally anticipated to be basically two standalone projects is actually being separated into a couple different phases based on how we think they'll be funded. So that will be forthcoming once we start seeing some of these funding agreements come through. And then the design completion, the 9th and Lincoln Lift Station is one of these projects. We were expecting to be able to start construction on that maybe like December, January timeframe. However, that is relying upon funding like all of these projects will be. The seed board is something that we will be going to in the near future to try to secure that funding. The Exit 67 lift station and the treatment plant headworks project, collectively, we were expecting that to be Ecology SRF funded, and we plan to have that ready in February or thereabouts. And then the rest of the treatment plant work associated with this project, we will have ready prior to this upcoming summer, but the funding agreement, or sorry, the funding program we thought we'd be using, we wouldn't be able to get funding for that prior to that time. So it's less of a rush to get that piece of the design completed. Next slide. So the purpose for all of these projects collectively, are ongoing operations issues primarily. The 9th and Lincoln lift station, the pumps in that lift station, because of the size of the lift station, they cycle on and off a lot and it wears out the pumps prematurely. There's also issues with access to be able to work on that lift station. It requires some traffic control and being able to get out into the road. So it's not as safe for city staff. So the understanding is once we do something about that lift station, we can design it in a way that the access to it is safer for the city. The Exit 67 lift station is basically that's more of a capacity issue. It's overloaded during peak flows. The evidence from pump run times is that it runs for very long periods of time and it has issues keeping up. And so if you were to get a peak storm event, it may or may not be able to access enough capacity to not cause overflows in the future. And another important part of that lift station is it serves the industrial area, which basically as the city continues to grow to the south, this lift station will bear a lot of the brunt of that. So we want to make sure that the city is able to continue to grow with development and not cause issues along the way. And then collectively, these two wastewater treatment plant projects, that we took part of it, the screens and the grit basins at the front of the plant at the headwork structure. Those are currently not working quite as intended because of some hydraulic issues. And so that was a standalone part of the project that we were trying to accelerate and get done earlier than the rest of the treatment plant work. And then the remaining work that was scoped is kind of a hodgepodge of things around the plant that need to get done, including a new storage building, updating and replacing the UV system, excuse me, and some energy improvement projects as part of that. Next slide. So this is the 9th and Lincoln lift station, circled there. You see some manholes and then access covers. And so to be able to work on the lift station, city staff in theory have to be able to access into that. It's right by the school. And so there's issues there as well when trying to take parts of the street, get them blocked off. It's a traffic issue there trying to work on that. Next slide.
And a safety issue for our employees also.
Yeah. To be able to get into that, they have to basically block off traffic, and it's also a confined space.
It is.
It's not the best. The Exit 67 lift station here is just off the I-82 ramp, just for some visual on that. This is outside of the roadway over by JM Eagle. And so in working on that project, we're looking similar to what's been going on with the 9th and Lincoln, trying to get at least through the school district. We're also needing to work with JM Eagle for some access for this lift station site. Next slide. And then some pictures of treatment plants. The first two pictures there are of the headwork screens and the grit basin. The main issue with the screens, the facility was not originally designed to have that style of screen there, and so there's some hydraulic issues where it backs up because it has to allow the water level to rise and fall. If it wasn't originally designed for that, it backs out into the sewer system and you get solids depositing those lines, which is a maintenance issue. And the screens run continuously and wear out. And then the grit basins are in the middle picture there, are worn out as well and not acting as intended. And then the third slide there is the UV system, which there's nothing specifically wrong with it aside from age, and it can't modulate. Newer UV systems if you have lower flows, the UV lights turn down and use less energy and basically acclimate with your flow. This, they just have to run at 100% capacity. So a newer system would save energy and be more efficient.
So do you have like plans to do like a different screening type setup?
The issue there will include basically a combination of the screen and that grit basin structure. There'll be a combined structure that will basically, it'll repump. So you will raise the water level into a new structure so that it continue to flow by gravity. But
You won't get the backup, so the solids won't settle and
correct.
maintenance.
It essentially will have an additional pumped stage in there so that you continuously keep the water moving through rather than getting stagnant there. Next slide. So cost and schedule for these projects collectively, the 9th and Lincoln Lift Station, we recently turned in a cost estimate with a ecology SRF application for all of these projects combined for whatever, basically to address anything that didn't get covered by other projects. This 9th and Lincoln project is estimated at a little under $1 million using the SEED program. Talking with other staff in our office today, we're thinking when the time comes to do that application, we may ask for a little more than that just because of how prices have been lately, but this is approximately what we're looking at. And then that application is due next week if we get everything from the school district that we need. Otherwise, it'll just go to the next meeting, or they're open to having a separate meeting when this information is available. So whenever we can get that in and hopefully secure this funding. That is a combined grant loan program, so there is opportunity to see some of this as grant, which is always a benefit that we look for. And then again, we are hoping to have that finished within the next month or two and be able to bid as soon as we have that funding. The Exit 67 lift station project is, I can't read from here, I think it's a little under 2 million. And we applied for Public Works Board back in August. We actually found out last week that the project was not accepted because they had a lot of requests this year. And so we're kind of back to the drawing board. The IACC conference in Wenatchee is actually this week. And so we're going to be talking to some of the other funding agencies while we're there to find out what they think the best option moving forward on this one would be. The Public Works application, we were anticipating that's probably 100% loan at a lower rate, but so whatever we end up with, being able to actually use, we'll see if the terms are favorable and be back to talk to the city about the best way to approach this one. The Headworks project was a part of that Public Works Board application, so again, we're back to the drawing board on how they, who we think may be the best funder for this. And then the remaining treatment plant work is a little over $4.5 million of remaining project that we have applied to SRF application for ecology last month. And so that the status of that is forthcoming. And as I said, when we did this application, we included the scope of all of this because it was the last one to find out. So, if we didn't get Public Works Board, maybe ecology will fund it and so forth. And so there's possibility of grant there based on the city's sewer rates. We don't know if you'll be eligible for a grant or not through that program. It really depends. It has to do with your median household income versus what your sewer rate is. So we'll know more about that one when those applications, that's usually the January, February of next year, we'll find out the status of that application. So that using those funding sources, the financial impact, the total cost of all of those projects combined is a little over 11 million based on what we expected for grant loan, the duration of loan and interest rates. You're looking at a debt service for all of that work combined of between $500,000 and $600,000 based on your number of residents and connections. It's looking like somewhere like $10 to $11 per ERU. We'll see how that falls out based on what kind of grants you get when we are able to get the construction funding for all of this. So then environmental concerns, this is information that is part of the design agreement with ecology is we do environmental reviews of this project, including like a typical SEPA process, but they also have what's called their SERP program where we have to look at a couple other things. So in this case, community profile, in previous versions of this, there was the term environmental justice comes up a lot, where ultimately what they want us to look at is when we look at projects funded through ecology, are we doing these projects in a way where all of the community is being equitably served? Are we disproportionately affecting anybody? So an example of this would be a lot of times people in the past would have taken something like low-income housing and put it in the least desirable area of town, or they would take, a big new plant and they'd put it in an area where the people who might not have had the most say didn't have as much of an opportunity to say, we don't want this in this location. So for this project, where we're doing these projects is where they're already at. So we're taking a lift station that's already in place and we're replacing it. We're going to the treatment plant, replacing things in place. So really, there's not much of an opportunity to replace where these are located. The entire city pays their sewer rates using the same formulas and the same methods. So we don't expect this to be disproportionately affecting anybody. That being said, we all know that people who are of lower income are going to feel a rate increase more heavily than others. And so that's certainly something we want to be aware of, especially as we look for grants for the projects. These projects are not located in floodplains. They're not located in wetlands. Those are two things that we often have to look at for this. So that makes the permitting for the project a little easier. As far as cultural resources, we did do a cultural resource study, and we didn't identify historic properties or things like cultural resources like artifacts or anything like that in the area that we're aware of. If during construction anything was to be located, we would of course have to contact the appropriate tribes. And then a new one this year with this process, migratory birds and bald eagles. We are not aware of any bald eagles on any of these sites. You have to use the websites and go through all of their web apps and look. They say there's the potential for, eagles and such. We're not aware of any of that, and we would hope that Public Works would let us know if they see any bald eagles on any of these sites. And then as far as migratory birds, this area of the state is a part of the Eastern Flyway, or Pacific Flyway, whatever they call that. But that being said, we don't think there are environmental issues that would prevent us from moving forward on these projects when we obtain construction funding. So I think that's the last slide. Okay. So that being said, if there's any questions about these projects, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Council, questions for Mr. Scott? Mr. Deputy Mayor?
I have a question on it's a monthly sewer rate impact at $10.70 per ERU. Is that additional to what residents are paying right now?
Yes. So that would be based on the funding programs we'd identified for all of this work, the debt service to take on all of that work. That's what it divides out to. So if we were to get all of those projects finished today, that would be what it would take to cover that debt service.
And that has nothing to do with the stormwater rate that we have right now, right?
No.
It's totally separate. Okay.
But just sewer rate that we're talking.
Yes, that would be in addition to your sewer rate. And as always, we always are hoping to get more grant than expected, but we hate to come and do it the other way and say, oh, we'll get 50% grant, everything's fine. And then to not get that is kind of hard to people to hear that.
The payment period of this loan would be how long?
30
20
years.
years?
I think the majority of the programs are 20 years. Ecology is a 30-year. I believe ecology actually gives you the option of 20 or 30 years, but for the larger loans, we would typically see a community try to do that in 30 instead of 20 just to reduce the rate impact. But.
Okay. Further questions? Deputy Mayor?
The X67 lift station, you're saying that it's overworked. One, because of the industrial component south of here. But also, I understand that the development at the Ajo Homes it also goes through there, right?
Yeah, right now your sewer system sort of daisy chains south and west through your process. So you pump from one lift station to another. And so as you develop anywhere on the southeast part of the city, ultimately that gets pumped up and around. So even if you're not serving an area to the south, if you're serving somewhere to the southeast or like the Catholic Charities or any of that area, eventually works its way up and around.
And if I could follow up, so I'm not sure who was here when the Ajo Homes came in, but did the city have to require them to upgrade any of these systems? Because it seems like if we didn't, then, we kind of should plan for that, for future developments, because, now we're having to put this money in for increased, the developer might have made some money, but now it's up to the city to pay it.
Kind
You
of,
start?
I kind of believe that there was, that the Catholic Charities was, that was part of the contract, that they would do.
That was-
Charities, yes, on Allen Road.
Allen Road,
on
yeah, that's a
Allen
different
Road.
one.
Just on
That's
Allen
what-
Road.
What's the other one that we're talking about? Are we-
Aho.
Oh,
Aho was before that.
That was
Yeah.
well before that.
So they may not have been,
Right.
but certainly the Catholic Charities was included in the increase in infrastructure.
Right.
But
And
they had to do the
ownership.
Allen Road improvements,
Right.
but that didn't lead to any improvements on exit 67, which is down the line from what
Right,
they had to improve. So
Right.
it's the next step down,
yeah.
right? Next step downstream from there to have to
Mhm.
improve that,
Mhm.
because otherwise that's going to get overloaded quickly.
And one thing too, when people make connections to the system, there are connection fees that in theory are paying for that, whether or not it's a dedicated part of a service agreement with them. I mean, maybe another story, but
Mhm.
there is at least some funding that gets paid as you get new connections into your system.
Ms. Ripley,
The 1080 per ERUs, is that before the grants or after the grants?
That is assuming we get the grants that were, that's assuming we get the grants that were assumed. Of those 4 projects, the only one that we specifically identified grant was based on discussions with Seed Board for the 9th and Lincoln Lift Station. When we talked with them, there was a certain percentage of grant. They said, you can probably plan with this assumption in mind, whereas the others, we assumed only loan based on our discussions with funding and the amount of grant that they thought would be available.
So do we have an ordinance on porta potties in town?
an ordinance on port, I don't, I
Yeah.
don't know.
It might be cheaper to get a porta potty.
Don't know what it would do to property
I
I wonder where
values.
you were going with
I
that.
like
I don't
that.
think that would fly with the Department of Ecology and or the Department of
Counselor
Health.
Hart.
You know, honestly,
no,
I
I
have
was-
seen porta potties in town though.
Well, I think that's, well, anyways. What was I thinking on that? It seemed to me that with the grants and the loans, more the loans than the grants, is where we would have to really be making our decisions on how much would, with that 1070
Mhm.
money, that would be where that would come in, right? With any project here that was just set up in loans, as opposed to whether we were going to get money from wherever that comes from, the Public Works Fund or wherever.
Right. So at this point, we would be applying in, I mean, with your blessing and, with your direction, we would be applying to Seed Board for the 9th and Lincoln project.
Right.
After that process gets completed, they would come back with what they were anticipating the funding look like. You always have the option to be able to say, we thought it was going to be more grant than it is. Maybe we don't accept that. Similarly with some of these other programs, if the SRF applications come back and they say you rank well enough that you can be funded, however, it's entirely loan, then you always have the option to look at that and say, financially, we just don't know. That is something to think about when we go turn in the applications. Is there is a very real likelihood that grants just not available. And in this climate, I believe we were told by the ecology that they received approximately $700 million worth of requests and about a little over $100 million to give. So about a seventh of what they need. Similarly with Public Works Board, part of the reason why your application wasn't accepted, it was a similar situation. I believe they had a little over 100 million and the requests were over 300 million. And so right now there's just not a lot of public dollars based on the need that we're seeing across the state.
So based on that, do you have the projects prioritized to, one is absolutely has to be done and the others can kind of fall in behind somewhere as we get funding, or is they all have to be done immediately?
Based on discussions with city staff, the part of the reason why we split that treatment plant job into the 2 pieces was really that headworks and grit basin. That was something that Public Works identified. We need that done as soon as possible using whatever funding we can find. That was part of the reason why the Public Works Board was used to do that. The Exit 67 lift station was identified as a high priority, so it was included in that Public Works application because we thought those funds, if the application had been successful, would be available at the beginning of next year. The 9th and Lincoln lift station is a little bit of a different situation. It's also needed, but it also represents an economic driver because of the development in the area. So that we looked at that one as being a separate funding. The remaining treatment plant work, the guys at the plant would love to see that done. However, it was deprioritized to the ecology because those funds might not be available for a couple years. And with this public works application having not been successful, we'll have to get back with them and find out what can be done as soon as possible and potentially maybe bring that project down if we can only find funding for a smaller amount using a different program.
Okay. So it's just not automatic where you're expecting to go out and do all of these and kick another $10 as a change on the sewer bill and just move forward. This is something that you can prioritize and say, okay, we're gonna do this one because this is the biggest one.
Yeah, a year ago, I would have told you Public Works Board has usually been a program that we're pretty successful with based on what's available and the ranking of applications. So I'll be perfectly honest, we really were surprised to see, and you're not the only application that was like this. I believe it was only 2 out of the 6 that we looked at were successful this year, just because it's such a tight program these days.
A lot of competition for it.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So I believe we're still paying our lobbyists, right, that we use for Olympia. Can we leverage them and see if, I don't know, because we could lobby?
We can certainly talk. I believe Mr. Colton's coming to town tomorrow. When I meet with him, I'll discuss this with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
That
mean,
was a good idea. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
well, if you need council to go again to Olympia or wherever, sign me up if, we need to do something about that.
I believe this last time around, they were focusing a lot on your water projects, was my recollection of where they were focusing this last time around.
Now we're really kind of shifting.
Now we need the drainage process.
Yeah. We got the water, now we need the.
All right. Further questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. That was very informative and given us quite a bit to think about.
Thank you. Based on the requirements of this, if anybody has any questions that come in later, I believe that it's a mandatory 60-day comment period. So if anything from the audience comes up, we will, regardless if there's any questions, we'll work with Public Works to get them answered. But the provisions require a comment period after the fact. So if anything comes up, please let us know and we'll address those.
All right. Well, anybody listening via Zoom or watching on YouTube later on, if you've got questions, you've got 60 days from today to get those questions in. So don't be shy.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is emergency sewer main line repair. Approve a resolution declaring an emergency for sewer line repairs and authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents related to the project. Mr. City Manager.
I will turn this over to our Deputy Director, Mr. Mejia.
Mr. Mejia.
Yes, so back on Friday, September 24th, sewer treatment employees were contacted about a sewer backup that was happening on Riverside. So they went out there and they flushed their lines. Obviously, what we found was that there was a lot of debris in there, rocks, dirt. Once we got it cleaned out, we had them camera it. Come to find out, the whole top of the pipe is completely gone. What we have there is just the bottom section that is allowing the sewer to go through without going into the dirt. But we need to address this right away. Went out and contacted some construction people to actually go take a look and give us some bids, knowing that this is an emergency. For the piping that we need to repair is about 180 feet. As you can tell, it angles out down at a 45. It starts up on Grandview Avenue and comes down to Riverside Avenue.
Right below the reservoir.
Right below the reservoir, correct. So yes, as you can tell on my next exhibit, everything comes to that section and then goes east to the treatment plant. So we went out to bids, got 2 bids. One came lower than the other one, about 2,000. So I'm hoping that City Council is allowing me to ask Mr. Bridges to sign for this to be fixed.
All right. Questions for Mr. Mejia? Sorry.
One of the questions I heard from a resident lives up there on the Grandview Avenue, only has one way into their property. It's right next to the reservoir. Invalid down behind there, down at the end of their road. They don't have another way to get out. Riverside can't access Riverside. when when they start working on this road, she's under the understanding that her driveway is going to be closed for like 3 to 4 days, maybe?
So we have talked to the construction people. We are working with them as we move along forward, that we are able to allow them access in and out. Obviously, I've talked to her. She said this week that this is an important week because she has many appointments. Moving forward, we are making sure that we be able to plate it and she'll be able to get in and out of her access.
Excellent, because she was quite concerned about it.
Yes, and
Wanted to
I
make
gave her
sure.
Card and number, and I told her at any time I will be happy to go down there and help her.
Well,
All right.
I imagine I'll be bumping along in there too.
Ms.
Thank you.
Hancock.
Hector, who is the company?
The company is Free Ponds that we're looking at to help us.
That's a local company.
It is a
Yes,
local
ma'am,
company.
that is a local company.
Okay.
All right, further questions, Deputy Mayor?
How many days is it gonna be disruption? I'm taking that some homes are not gonna be able to flush toilets or.
No, so I called up to Sela and we do have a pump there. I've talked to their public works director, Rocky Wallace, and I was able to achieve a pump, so we'll be able to bypass that section. So it won't interrupt anybody.
Okay, got it.
Okay, good.
Just
Ms. Hart.
just on that same note, one of the things, the other questions that I had is with that construction going on, there's no emergency services to be able to get back down into where that, behind the reservoir, down where this one lady's house is. Her husband's an invalid.
Yes.
And thinking about emergency trucks getting down in there, or services, hopefully nothing more serious than an ambulance, but
Well, hopefully, if everything works out well, they can get that section knocked out within a day, give or take. If they are able to, they will backfill and rock it and be able to get it access. So if there's any emergencies that need to be down there, we'll be able to take care of it. Like I said, if not, we'll make sure that they plate it. It was real thick
that
steel.
heavy
Yes,
steel.
and that way it's operating enough for a fire truck to get down there or an ambulance. If not, they'll be
It's
pumping.
on Grandview Avenue by the reservoir.
What we can do as well is if we can kind of I'll get with Hector and we'll get a better address, then we can actually go out and kind of pre-plan the area
Okay.
for those.
Yeah, that one is of major concern right there.
No, and you are correct. The address, I think, is Riverside, but the access is from Grandview Avenue.
Yeah,
It's right across the road from my house, so.
yes, yeah. Okay.
All right, further questions or comments on this one? Okay, this is brought forward as a resolution to vote on, and so we've heard all of this. If there's no more questions, what is the desire of council on this item?
Move to approve the resolution allowing Mr. Bridges, interim city manager, to declare emergency sewer central line repair to be completed by Free Ponds Construction Company LLC for the amount of $32,146,022.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Councilor Hart, for reading that. So motion by Councilor Hart, second by Councilor Vasquez to approve this resolution. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none. Councilor Ripley,
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez,
Yes.
Councilor Hancock,
Yes.
Councilor Hart,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
I too vote yes, motion passes. Yeah, I did see all the trucks parked up there today and all the commotion going on, so
Thank you.
everybody was looking and investigating, so we get that done soon. When do you estimate starting?
I'm hoping by tomorrow we can gather together and get a game plan going and have at it.
Perfect. Next item is the fee schedule, and Mr. City Manager.
I'm not sure if this was Hector or Ms. Hofstadter on this one. I think it was originally assigned to Mr. Mejia, but
Okay.
he's been working with Ms. Hofstadter on this
All
fee
right.
Yes.
schedule.
So I went back, like I stated, 3 to 4 years. And I've done a lot of work on this. So going back, I've noticed that in 2025, past finance directors were supposed to come up 5%. Doing the math, and trust me, this was a long math for me.
Mhm.
I come to find out that it wasn't up 5%. They were between 0.04 to 0.52, 0.052. What I did is I went at 5% for the whole column, as you can tell in the next section. And I made it sure that we are to the dime, to the penny, because what happened was the prior finance administrator was either making it to the dollar, either the lower part or the higher part. So as of right now, these are the fees that we need to move forward with in 2026. I sent everybody, all the public committee, review it. I've been working with Ms. Hofstetter and Chief Holbrook on trying to get these fees taken care of. I know we still need to work on some of the fees for the ambulance and water, sewer rates, and storm drains.
All
I'm here
right,
to
council,
answer.
questions?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor.
Is the blue column
The blue column is the recent up to dated 5%.
Ms. Vasquez.
Yeah, so I have a question. There's a huge jump between online dangerous dog registration. I see 178.08 and it jumps up to 250.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was with the 5%.
Wow. Okay.
We have been losing a lot of money. Like I said, it was when I redid this and I saw what was going on. There were some parts that were just to the lowest dollar.
Mhm.
With the true 5%, like I stated, this is what I came up with.
Okay. That's a lot, right?
Yes, that was a lot. There
Yeah.
was a lot on there, and there
Okay.
was a lot on there that wasn't even on there. There were some automobile taxes that
Mhm.
Mr. Taylor, and I found that should be on here that weren't on here. Obviously, I went through and added some more verbiage for them. Like I said, I'll be working with Chief Holbrook for the rates for the ambulance.
Okay. Yeah, I just had that question because the majority of the rest just goes up maybe like a few $5 to $10 max.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can actually speak on ambulance rates if or when you would like.
Okay.
What?
Deputy Mayor.
So if you go to the where it starts with the garbage collection and you look at the orange column, but then you look at the blue column, it goes from $10.60 to 0.22 cents.
Yeah, so we don't control our garbage. That is off Yakima Waste. So I need to reach out to them, and I reach out to them to see if I can get a updated rates by them. We do collect some money from them, but I believe we need to work with them to make it that much better.
I think typically what they've done in the past is they've informed us of what the rate increases were going to be.
Yeah.
And they've just kind of expected us to toe the line on that, so.
I'm currently doing a rate study for the Yakima disposal. Right now, we're operating at a loss, so we need to actually increase any admin fees with them.
Okay. Art?
I think that was along the lines of what I was going to ask. It seems to me that we always try to, with the water, the garbage, the sewer, try to make those increases annually small so they don't come up to these
Right.
humongous numbers. But when we kind of don't quite do our 5% the way we're supposed to, we still are gonna,
We still are behind.
Yeah.
And obviously with everything that's prices running, diesel, tires, maintenance,
Sort of
oil,
hard, right.
everything gets expensive and we just need to get more caught up on the times.
yeah.
Ms. Hofstadter, you want to kind of explain how this thing kind of got all warped out of shape, this whole fee schedule?
Obviously, math wasn't mapping. So what I'm doing right now is there's a few things in here that need to have a rate study done before they can actually be fixed. So some things like the garbage disposal needs to be addressed with ILAs and having a new actual ILA committed to those things. Because, as you'll see in our workshop tomorrow, you'll see where our rates are right now and where they should be.
So you,
Go ahead.
just on that note, then you said on the garbage, could you just indicate what other ones that we might be looking at? That were you talking about?
Sewer, stormwater, water actually was the only one that was actually okay. It was doing pretty good. The water.
But for certain, the sewer, the
Mhm, yeah.
garbage and the,
For sure,
Stormwater.
stormwater, yeah.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Is that the reason that those are blank on column, on the blue and is it brown? I might.
I tried to make it
it's
orange.
kind of orange.
Orange.
It's kind of orange.
Is that the reason those
I
are
might be
blank?
colorblind.
It
Those
looks
are blank,
orange. It looks
the
orange to
water and
me.
sewer?
Yes, that's why they're blank, because obviously we have to make sure, we have rates that we needed.
So, and one of the reasons why the fee structures have, we've had multiple copies go out, right, in the last year, and none of them seem to track with each other. I think that was due to the fact that, at the time, the past administrations had said, it put it to each department to update their own fees after they were approved by council. Well, those things may or may not have happened, right? And so now we're going to re-centralize that and, once they're adopted, it will become the finance department's position to maintain the fees and not each individual department.
Councilor Vasquez.
Yes, so I have a question. It's on page 30, I guess on the paper, it says page 13 on the very bottom. Title 15, buildings and construction, fire inspection fee.
Yeah.
So I see that on the blue, it's $81.43, and there's nothing on orange. Was there not a fee
Yes, so-
before?
There was nothing feed for that. That's where some of this came into play, is we weren't billing people out on it until Corey started open Gov. Once Open Gov started, this is where the fees are coming from. So I was able to put in here.
Okay, so my question is, or maybe it's a little off topic, but are the inspections up to date?
The inspections are up to date.
Okay.
Yes.
Just
Sorry.
clarification, you're talking about inspection fees
Yes. ma'am.
are all up to date.
Yes,
Mhm.
ma'am.
A minute ago, Chief, you talked about the ambulance utility. Would you mind just kind of giving a little bit of a dissertation on that?
I can give you a little bit or a lot of it, whatever you
Well,
prefer.
just kind of give us
We'll
an
give it short,
overview.
right?
Give us the
Give us the
overview.
Cliff Notes
What
version.
you think we need to know.
All right, there we go. I'll go with that one. Okay, so
I
we're
just want the
talking
Cliff Notes.
Title VII, so pertaining to ambulance fees. So this will be pretty brief in the sense that regarding our utility rate, we've actually just completed a study that's been ongoing for some time with FCS Group. Monica and I have been in contact with them the last few weeks. They're just simply dotting the i's, crossing the t's, and making it look pretty. The plan is for them to present to the Finance Committee meeting on the next scheduled meeting, which I believe is in process. Once we go through there, their plan is to present to council on their findings. So as of now, we don't have much to speak on behalf of the suggested rates. Of course, whatever they bring to the table, they're going to bring forth, I believe, 3 different options. Of course, you're not obligated to go with any of those options, but they're going to give you pretty much 3 scenarios, I guess, maybe better than options, as to, what we want to see out of it. And then, option A, B, or C is going to be, the route we're going to want to take if that's the end goal we're shooting for. So again, that will be coming up here in the next few weeks. So regarding the utility rate, we're just going to kind of leave that for now until we can have them, FCS Group, come in and do that presentation, and then we can kind of make those determinations at that point. So in regards to, I'm going to skip to the bottom. Sorry, I'm going to jump out a little bit. So the very last line, event standbys. So that one will be readdressed. That one also kind of hung in limbo as we were waiting to wrap up our IFF contract with the firefighters. So when we do our EMS standbys, those are never a moneymaker. It's a break even at best. So we just need to make sure that with the increase in salaries that we're going to adjust that rate to make sure that we're still at least breaking even on that. So that one we'll have a concrete number for you here shortly once we've been able to incorporate the salary increases to reflect that appropriately. And then in regards to the individual transport rates. So we've kind of talked about this in great detail, and there's, you know, 1,000 ways to skin a cat. And so we figured kind of the best way to do it was to try and simplify things as much as possible. And if you guys are looking at it, you can see, would you all agree that that is difficult to read? You can say no if I'm wrong, but it's kind of a confusing process, a little convoluted to navigate. And so talking with our ambulance biller, talking with Monica, who has pretty substantial history with fire service and different billing. She's very well versed on that. We kind of wanted to keep things simple. And so one option that we're looking at, and feel free to step in any time, Monica, if I'm botching it. But we want to simplify the billing process. Now, currently we have multiple, but two predominantly different rates. One is virtually in the city and out of city. It's currently marked as utility zone, but that translates to, are you in the Sunnyside city limits or are you not? So that is a very challenging thing to bill out on. Our billing company has struggled with that I shouldn't say struggle, that's not the right word, but it's been a challenge. We'll put it that way. So their suggestion is to alleviate, and what they're kind of doing across the board is now alleviating in and out of city rates. So we did analysis today, and right now, currently, of all of our transports for this year, and this has been a trend over the last, many years, 83% of our population are Medicare, Medicaid patients. And so the reason why that's noteworthy is because Medicare, Medicaid, they pay what they're going to pay. We could bill any amount, but we're going to collect what is paid out by Medicare, Medicaid. So really all that we're kind of talking about at this point is that remaining 17%. And so to kind of cut to the chase, our suggestion is that in lieu of proposing a rate increase, we are proposing just to keep the one rate, which would be the out of region rate, and the cost difference is not large, but with understanding that our reimbursement rate is 83% based on the Medicare, Medicaid reimbursements. With that being said, as we go into year 2026 and we are working with our consulting group on our fee study, what we are suggesting, and I'm appropriate to bring this up now, is we are proposing to have our rates reflect to where if you are a City of Sunnyside resident, only your insurance will be billed for an ambulance. That Sunnyside City residents will not receive a bill for their ambulance service above and beyond what their insurance is going to cover. So that is what we're looking at, but please step in.
That would be also bringing the rates up to what they should be, though.
Correct.
So it would be a rate increase, but the rate increase is just going to be where the actual insurance would be covering a maximum price instead of right now at a discounted price. So it would all go through insurance. Insurance would cover the costs. Taxes would cover the cost, and those utility rates would cover the cost. Then the residents within the city limits of Sunnyside wouldn't actually receive a bill, just their insurance would be charged for the bill.
Question there. What about deductibles? Because I know that in the past, doctors have been waiving the deductibles for certain patients and gotten in trouble for it. So will the insurance company even allow that if there is a deductible that the patient has to pay?
On ambulance.
So what
For
they do
ambulance.
is they say that there's a deductible that has to be met, and that's met through your taxes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was covered because I don't want the
I
insurance companies
actually
to come
worked
back.
for a district that did the exact same thing. So that's how they do it, is that your taxes are meeting your deductible
Okay.
because you're paying it, even though you're not really paying your deductible. You're paying into the ambulance.
Okay.
Correct. And that's what your utility pays for. And so that's where, and to piggyback on what Monica's saying there too, is right now, as we found through our biller, our rates are very low, our transport rate. They're about a third of what you'd get out of a private ambulance company. So for example, if AMR was coming to do a transport, our rates are about a third, if not less, of what they charge. So we're finding that our rates are actually less than some of the allowable amounts for insurance companies. So really, we're shortchanging ourselves. So looking to this avenue, getting our rates closer to where they should be, but then also offering the fact that our Cityside residents are paying with their taxes, it'll be less of a cost in theory to the individual, but we are still recuperating more appropriate funds. Is that appropriate?
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Would they still have the option to go to which hospital? I guess I
Absolutely. So that part does not change, and that's actually in our county operating procedures.
know. Okay.
Okay. Ms. Hancock.
This did not print out well for me, just because it's not landscape. So tell me, individual, say, I'm calling the ambulance. I've got Medicare. Medicare pays for my part, and then I don't have a bill, correct?
That would be the intent.
Okay, forever. And then, but an out-of-town person that doesn't have insurance, what are they gonna pay?
They're going to get billed whatever the amount is. Now, again, depend on if they have no insurance at all. If they're cash pay, then that's something they work out with the biller, or their private insurance, or even we have some contracts with a couple other state insurance, including the state of Oregon. So it would go that route. But I think of what you're getting at is they would still receive a bill. They're not paying Sunnyside City utilities, so they're
Right.
not going to get that benefit, if you will, of being a City of Sunnyside resident.
So there is still a benefit because like I say, they're paying, and I hear about the bill, the water sewer bill with the ambulance on there all the time, and that it continues to go up. And so, I want to make sure that we are not subsidizing people outside of this area.
Correct.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Deputy Mayor.
And you're gonna base that based on their ID,
So.
or a city, within city residents?
Correct. So there's a couple different ways that we go about doing that. So if we obtain an ID, so be it. But most of the time where we actually get their demographic information is from their insurance provider or Medicare, Medicaid. So it's vetted that way. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's always going to be those one-offs where if we have a patient who we don't get a good ID on because of, they're non-responsive or whatever, there's always going to be those, we call them snowflake calls, or very unique, so I won't be able to tell you, is it going to be, 100%, well, one might slip through the cracks. This is the fire service. We deal with some pretty crazy stuff, but go ahead, Monica.
They have access to hospital records, so they actually
That
can
is
pull the
correct.
information out of the hospital records.
Correct. And I guess I should clarify what I'm referring to is when nobody knows, the hospital included. So yes, thank you. But it is vetted that way.
Okay. Further questions or comments? All right. Well, you guys did a lot of work so far, and it sounds like you got a little bit more work to do and some more studies to do, and but bringing us up to date. I know several years ago, council said agreed or voted to to have these periodic rate increases just so that we didn't hit the community so hard with all of a sudden out of the blue rate increase because we haven't raised prices for 20 years or whatever the case may be. But it seems as if either we didn't cover all the bases when we did that, or it's just kind of fallen off the radar for a couple of years. Whatever the case may be, I appreciate you bringing us up because, yeah, getting hit with a huge, 100% water rate increase or whatever the case may be hurts people. A lot of us are able to pay it. There's a lot of people in this town who aren't. And so they don't need that kind of sudden shock to their system, and it's not fair to the community. So I appreciate that. It's a lot of work though.
Yeah, Bill.
When the math doesn't math and you got to go back and figure out how did we get here? Sometimes that's a mystery. So, Ms. Hart.
Certainly do appreciate the getting it on track, getting it up and on track. So we don't run into that because it is, like the mayor said, it's very difficult for folks in the community to adjust sometimes. And especially when you're talking about the insurance business, knowing who's going to get charged for ambulance calls. So that's really good to know that you have a kind of a map figured out to work that.
One thing that I'd like to mention, Counselor, on that in reference to the reason why we focus so hard on rates in regards to Medicare, Medicaid is we ran a study, and over the course of the last 4 years, our average collection rate from what was billed to what we received from Medicare was between 9 and 12%.
Jeez,
Yeah.
that's
And
crazy.
That's pretty low.
Yeah.
And you certainly would want to have it much higher than that.
Yeah.
Since how paid into it.
All right.
Okay.
Well, carry on.
Yeah, thank you all. I'm amazed that you had that experience, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Next item on the agenda, discuss police services for signature events. And is that our police chief or is that you, sir?
Well, I think this is the kind of the larger discussion we left off with for LTAC. And so I just don't want to dump this on Chief Lehman here. It's really what's the direction the city wants to go here, right? Because we did find out that police services are reimbursable through LTAC funds. for these events. However, when you start looking at significant costs, I think the chief can discuss what those costs have been in the past. We can drain our LTAC fund pretty quick,
Yes.
right? So I think we're trying to avoid that, but we're also trying to avoid getting into a situation where it's a potential, seems like a gift to public funds by providing police services. However, we do budget part of our overtime cost for police services goes to these events. And so, again, I'm just trying to figure out what the real answer is for this, how we're going to go to our LTAC partners and say, do we want them to pay for out of pocket for security services, or is that something that we're ready to fund or partially fund, or how's it going to go? So
My thoughts.
that's the question.
Yeah, my thoughts are that we should partially fund at least. I mean, we have to have these events. They're part of the community. I don't want to burden the police department, but gosh, trying to pay it out of LTAC, there will be no money left in LTAC. All we'll be buying is security. So, I want them to advertise these events and be able to have these events and grow them. So it's a fine line. I mean, I don't know what we're going to do here, but I think we should at least partially fund the police department to do the events.
Okay, other comments? Deputy Mayor.
So I asked a question to MRC and I forwarded it over to Mr. Bridges and the mayor and our attorney. So one of the questions that they said is the important question is for the citywide events hosted by nonprofits, are the officers working in general around the city, or are the officers just patrolling the event in question? If the nonprofit is the only entity benefiting from the police officer overtime, then there's a good chance the police overtime would be seen as gift of public funds.
Correct.
Just a clarification. Mhm.
And so what that says then is if we have our police set up there in Centennial Square with their tent and they're hanging out there and they're just at the event, then we need to be kind of careful how we do that, because we don't want to be accused of gifting of public funds, even though when it's a large event, it does benefit the entire community. It's just centralized in that one area. So it's kind of the lawyers are going to define it differently than what Counselor Hancock just said a minute ago, and they're going to define it differently than what I believe. And so we need to be careful that we're doing it in a way that is legal and defensible, because we don't want to find ourselves in the midst of a lawsuit over this. Ms. Hancock.
And I think that kind of plays into the partial funding issue, is then we can it's going to be a logistical nightmare probably to bill it out. But the police officers are coming and going from the scene. I mean, if something happens on the west side of town, they're going to go to that. So I think a portion, we'd figure out a portion or how we would do it to, so that we aren't just paying the officers to be just there. And then billing the event when the police officers leave and go to another call. So it's going to be a juggling act.
Correct. Sorry.
Certainly seems to me that it would probably be a billing issue as well for you
Well,
figuring it out.
so can I give my suggestions? I can.
Yes.
That's why I was.
We paid the big dollars.
When we do have guys or officers dedicated to an event, they're not allowed to leave. They're dedicated to that event.
Okay.
The only time I've ever left an event was at Cinco de Mayo. One time was my drone left the event to go to a police call that was down the road, and they said people are running, so I just took the drone over there. But I stayed at Centennial Square. I think the way you get around it is it's not necessarily 100% the nonprofit's event. It's in conjunction with the city, and maybe we cover half and they cover half, and then you split it down the middle. If you try to get into 33% and 66% or something like that, then it would be a logistical nightmare. I think if you did, it's a city event in conjunction with Rotary, and we're going to split the cost 50-50, something to that effect. Now, it's kind of a shock and awe when I give the numbers for Cinco de Mayo, because at Cinco de Mayo, we've had a major problem. And every officer is working on their days off. It's already been dedicated. from now in October for next year, nobody can have time off. So they can't even request vacation time during Cinco de Mayo. They will be working. But when we have sunshine days or something like that, it's like 2 officers down there. So it's nowhere near the cost of what we're talking about here. I know that the Ale Fest, they go out and get their own private security, so that's an option. Cinco de Mayo, that's probably not an option. We do have to have somebody down there with arrest powers. So that's my suggestions. I think if we do these events in conjunction with, and I think they're just as beneficial to the city as they are to Rotary or whoever's putting it on, we split it 50-50. Cinco de Mayo is the one that's the big one, obviously, but I don't think that it's going to be this large number for any of the other events.
I like that. I agree
I
with
think that's a
that.
good
Well,
plan.
and I think especially when we're focusing on the signature events.
Correct.
I mean, it's different for a 3-on-3 basketball tournament or something like that, but for the signature events, and that's what we're talking about here specifically for signature events, Ms. Alstetter.
So this is something that was covered in our conference when I was gone. And it's my understanding that the event host has to put it in the application.
Mhm.
Right.
It's not something the city can provide. It has to be part of the number of the application and a line item that says it's for security purposes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Where you get, I understand your 3-on-3 thing,
Sunshine Day.
but 3-on-3 is part of Sunshine Days.
Yeah.
So how would you bifurcate those to say, okay, well, and security,
And that probably wasn't the best example I've used. I'm just thinking of a
True.
standalone event that's not a signature event.
yeah.
But it is.
It's a portion of the signature event. I don't know how you would, maybe that's the 50% that Rotary runs and the 50%.
I
don't-
wasn't trying to separate that out. I was thinking of that as a separate standalone event on a different weekend. And I got it
Correct.
wrong.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But the 3-on-3 is actually part of the 509 Insanity. They put that on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then the Rotary then puts on, Noon Rotary puts on then the what's called the Sunshine Day event,
Right. And the other,
even though
thing-
they're running concurrent.
the other thing that's not part of, I guess we need to decide if it's part of this. So I'm just looking for direction from the council. What do you want me to do? But parade overtime. Traditionally, we've never charged for that. So
Right.
back when a private entity was running Cinco de Mayo, they were charged for Cinco de Mayo security, but I don't believe she was charged for the parade. I think the city has always covered parades. But that's another thing to consider because now Rotary's putting on the parades and things like that. So, I mean, it's up to you folks. Do you want to not charge for parades, split the signature events, charge? And if you notice, I don't know if you saw it on Hector's fee schedule, for the first time ever, there's actually police officer fees on there. So when somebody comes in and says, I want to hire two people for a wedding, now we know what to charge. That's never been in there before. So honestly, when we used to work security a lot of times at Dark Horse, when they brought in big bands and things like that, I don't know how they were coming up with an amount. It was never in the fee schedule, but I know we were charging them.
Monica, you had a comment?
Oh, I was just gonna, I provided a couple of slides that was in the conference. And the question was, can lodging tax funds be used for patrol duty officers' salaries when assigned to a parade or a community event when it is an event approved and provided by LTAC funds? And it says yes, as long as the city has applied to the LTAC for such funding and the event meets the requirements for the LTAC funding. In other words, the city itself can put in the application. It doesn't have to just be, so if there's a 50-50, so if the city's portion is for an event and then there's another entity that's for the event, the city can put their portion in for those funds.
Gotcha.
But that would reduce the.
Right, but then I think they're not wanting to charge for the full amount of security.
Right.
Yeah, because LTAC, I mean, you'd take a quarter of the LTAC money with Cinco de Mayo security alone,
Yeah.
Just,
if not a
yeah,
third.
or more than
Deplete
that.
the pot really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about, what we're doing and what we're trying to build. I'm all in for the 50-50 on the events, but I think the parades should be, I think it should be the cities.
All of them, because like we even have like the Sunnyside Events Committee, right?
Yeah, but the signature. of
Yeah,
it.
the Sunnyside Events Committee though is, they close, the streets department closes the roads off when they do like the kids' Christmas parade. So that's not like, okay, so here's an example. There's two kinds of parades that the police department does. Well, I guess 3. So the little thing the kids do, they just close the streets off. But we do what's called we do a regular parade where there's 15 officers out. We close every intersection. And then we do what's called a rolling roadblock. Rolling roadblock could look a lot more like a funeral procession, just so everybody can understand it. So on Wednesday of this week, we're doing a rolling roadblock for the homecoming parade. So it's like going to be 2 officers, probably, one in front. You get up there, make sure the first cars stop. All right, the cars behind them aren't going to go through them, right? And then you move up to the next intersection, and then you're just about 100 yards ahead of the parade. So that's a rolling roadblock. So like our SRO is doing the one on Wednesday, and her time's reimbursed by the school anyway. So we just bill the school for it. But
Cool.
And it's just her or someone else?
if she needs help, she'll have a patrol officer come help her.
That's for the homecoming parade.
Yeah, it would be homecoming parade. Sometimes we have requests for other small things, but usually we do rolling roadblocks for.
So I'm just thinking of the other small ones. The lighted Christmas parade for the kids, you don't have to do that because they're just going around the block and coming right back.
Correct, but
'Cause that's already blocked
But the Sunnyside
off.
Events Committee does, that is correct for that one.
Uh-huh.
But the Sunnyside Events Committee does one on the last day of school that goes down, don't quote me this, but I think it goes from like Safeway down to like 9th and then back on Edison. We can do that with a rolling roadblock. It's only 3 blocks down, 1 over and 3 back.
And none of that has ever been charged, correct?
Nope. Well, to my knowledge, in the 20 years I've worked here, we've never charged anybody for a parade, no matter if there was a conjunction with an event where we did charge the security for the event. We have never charged for a parade, to my knowledge. And I confirmed that with Glosson, who recently retired and ran all those events.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, but
again, if
we're-
it was
oh.
LTAC funds, it would be presented to LTAC for approval, and then the committee would have to present it to council, and the council would have to approve it. So it would go through an entire process before those funds would be distributed.
If an event organizer was going to put in for half the security to LTAC, they would just have to come meet with me. We would determine what the security is going to look like. I could look at our schedule, say who's off. Okay, you're going to have 3 sergeants at this rate. You're going to have 10 officers at this rate. And I could give them, all right, the amount is this. You're going to be responsible for half of it, if that's what you choose to do. But I could give them that when they're doing their application. So they would be able to turn it in ahead of time.
But I'm back
Which they
to,
would do.
Ms.
I'm sorry.
Hancock.
so I'm back to signature events.
Correct.
So
We probably need to designate those in the.
we
in
need to
some-
designate the signature events.
I think Sunshine Lighted Parade and Cinco de Mayo are probably the 3.
Those, and they have been
Yep.
designated in LTAC at some point, and I think council designated them, so.
Yeah.
That's-
Yep.
That's been done.
Cinco
know
de
if I'm missing
Mayo,
one.
Sunshine Days, Lighted Parade. There's one more, isn't there?
4th of July,
We don't have.
No, that's no parade.
nothing unfortunate.
We
Spring.
we could.
That might be it. I can't think of it. So, yeah, I think we need to designate that and then, yeah. And then they're designated as those 3 events. And then I think we decide those 3 events differently than we decide the rest. And so, a rolling parade or whatever, there's very few of those, but, it really doesn't take a lot of police time, but it's still a cost. But I think the 3 signature events,
You could do the same with like if you.
I think the 3 signature events should be different and, possibly no charge to the 3 signature events.
Is Spring Fest still happening? That's the other
Oh,
one.
the Ale Fest, that's the other one.
Ale
But
Fest,
they do their own.
and they pay for that. But Spring Fest, is that still happening?
No.
I think the
but-
church used to put that on.
Mhm.
Okay.
Haven't heard of it.
Oh, at the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did
In the
do
field.
something this weekend, didn't they?
I don't know. They used to have rides and they would hire officers.
Yeah. But that was Mayfest or something like that. They called it,
Yeah.
but yeah. But I think that's been gone for a while.
Councilor Hart.
I'm just thinking, for the signature ones, that would have to come through, so you could do 50-50. The people who are organizing those signature events would pay 50 for security, and the other 50 would be coming from LTAC funds designated.
No, I think they would apply to LTAC for their half.
Yes.
The other, the city's half would just come out of our budget. But
Okay.
like right now, if LTAC applications were open, I would expect that whoever's organizing Cinco de Mayo, the signature events would come meet with me and say, all right, what are our security requirements and what's it going to cost us? And I could give them a pretty good idea so that when they turn in their application, the amount is in there.
Maybe we need to have a little PSA on that.
Well, it's only one group pretty much puts everything on, so I think,
Now it is.
yeah.
Yes, but like the 3-on-3, the 509 Insanity, they put into for this and other people have put in for it. So we really do need to get the word out there because
Well, for security, yes.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be splitting the cost. So but that would need to be, maybe they need to have a page in the LTAC application that says you are responsible now for security or something to that effect.
Large and bold.
You know, it's a lot of these places can hire private security. The 3-on-3s can. There are issues at those 3-on-3 tournaments are bad. People get upset with,
Mad.
yeah, all they do, and they get in fights and everything else. There was recently an MMA fight at the
by my
over here, yeah, by your house, and they provided their own security. Coming up, there's a boxing match at the community center, and that's one where I'm up in the air. I asked them what their security plan was, and they said, "Well, we didn't know we had to have security." And I'm like, "Well, how old are the fighters? You know, are they 10-year-old to 12 or what?" "No, they're guys up to 30." Well, people get amped up at those things. I mean, it's just the way it is. So that was one of the things I need to talk to my boss about what we're gonna do, but because they're waiting for an answer whether they need to hire security or not.
And at the community center.
Well, it's at a city building. I think if we call our insurance, they're gonna require them to have some
Yeah.
kind of security there. So
You're right.
And that MMA, that was wild. The cars, I mean, they were parked all the way down Schoon Road forever. Like, I couldn't believe it when I looked out there and they're from, as far as I could see, up Schoon to Bob's Drive-In, that was crazy.
there was a lot of cars. I was working that night. It was busy.
Mhm.
Where was that held at?
The neighborhood health.
It was
Or
at the
the
racket club. It's
racket club,
on the
yeah.
basketball court in the back. They have a basketball court. I didn't even know that was back there in the basically a backyard.
That's where it was.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, so LTAC's been waiting for this discussion to happen so we could open up the applications for, the events for next year. So I guess, the direction that council wants to do is split it 50-50 minus any other parades for the
It's-
signature events.
That's kind of the read I'm getting on it. Before I say anything else, Councilor Vasquez, what did you want to?
Yeah, so I have a question. So I know like the numbers are still not, maybe, I don't know if you've been able to kind of get an estimate on these 3 signature events, and how would that 50% look like for the city?
Well,
More or
so,
less, just an idea.
let me see.
Or like
So,
those-
so I can tell you, Cinco de Mayo last year cost us $28,550. We didn't charge them, and that's not charging them for any command staff. So they had 2 commanders and the chief down there pretty much all weekend. I actually, this last year I wasn't down there because my mom passed away like 2 days before Cinco de Mayo, but, typically they would have the chief and they would always have, somebody from command staff would always be there. Typically 3 of us are there. So we didn't charge for that, but just officers' time was $28,550.50.
And would the sergeants or chief, would that be required, like at least 1 or 2 for that?
Well, so here's the way we work Cinco de Mayo ever since the shooting is we have 2 shifts off, 2 shifts are working down there. So that brings them, and the detectives. So that brings them 3 sergeants, 2 detectives, and about 7 or 8 patrol officers. So usually we have 14 or 15 people down there because it's so spread out.
Okay. And let's say we were to add maybe, the salary or the pay for 2 sergeants, how would that estimate?
That's in there.
Okay,
That's
that's
with all this. I took their pay stubs from that
Okay.
event and calculated, and then I got their hourly pay from City Hall and said, what did we pay for security?
So that'll total up to 28,550.
550.
Okay. And then for Sunshine Days?
Sunshine Days was 2 officers down there all the time. I can't remember the hours. I think it was only over 2 days. So excluding the parade, I would imagine we're talking $3,500.
Okay.
And our half
Yeah,
would be
just
half of
more
that.
or less, yeah. And the implemented lighted parade?
Well, the implement lighted parade is a parade.
Okay, yeah.
That's the same as Cinco de Mayo. Everybody works. What we do on that one is even the day shift has to stay. The parade makes a line through the city. We put 2 patrol officers on this side, 2 patrol officers on this side, and everybody else is working. So that's the entire department.
That's kind of like also like the parade discussion, right?
Yeah, but that's the entire department for a 3-hour window. Now we do have a couple that come in if they have the Christmas market or some of that stuff. Sometimes they'll say, hey, can we get 2 officers down right at 6th and Edison at 2 in the afternoon or noon? We could charge for them up until the parade starts.
Yeah,
But we're talking about,
yeah,
$1,500 maybe.
okay.
So the read I'm getting from council, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but for parades, it doesn't sound like council really wants to charge for a signature event parade. For the implement parade, for Cinco de Mayo, and for Sunshine Days especially. We don't want to charge the community for that because this is an important event for the community, and council wants to reflect that by just, let's have security there. That's our police department, and that's what we want to see. For the event itself, we're willing to foot the bill for half of it.
But half the bill.
And then the event organizers have got to come up with the funding for the other half. So in this particular case, with the example that he was using for Cinco de Mayo, the 28,000, the city would foot the $14,000 portion of it, and then the organizers would foot the other half. All right, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes,
Good to me.
Okay,
but I have a suggestion. So since the city will be footing the 50%, I do think that instead of, like just giving the full credit, let's say to Rotary, it could be maybe like a partnership, right? Like Rotary and the city of Sunnyside. More, and that way the community kind of can also see that the city of Sunnyside is also helping.
I think it has to be, or you run into the gifting of public.
Yeah, so that would be something that will need to be added on, especially for those 3 specific signature events, just because it hasn't been done that way recently.
okay, good call.
They
No,
usually, the graphics are usually say like,
Mhm.
sponsored by the city of Sunnyside,
Mhm.
organized or brought to you by the event organizer
Okay.
logo.
Well, and I think any event would have to do that if we're paying half that of the security, we should be mentioned in that on any event. So
Yeah.
there might be some events we don't want to put our name on though.
Imagine.
So I'm just saying, so that way, like the wording can be added onto the LTAC application.
yes.
Cool.
All right,
Sounds good.
so you kind of getting some direction here, Deputy Mayor, for the LTAC committee, and?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Thank you.
Perfect. It's a good discussion. Thank you guys for your input. We often don't see that from our position of what it costs and how that goes, and we don't know, and sometimes people do ask us, but I appreciate you giving us those numbers. Counselor Hancock.
And just, could be later in the meeting, but, well, I guess not, because this is workshop. We have people we need to put on LTAC. George, I know one receiving the taxes and one receiving LTAC. There's those 2 openings.
Okay.
Do we have some applications in, do we not, Dean?
I have to go back and review those. Jackie, what have we got for applications? She's saying yes. You just.
Yes, there are a few LTAC and some housing authority ones. I haven't seen one for arts yet, but
But I think we need to act on
We
them.
will have to have a rules committee meeting to go over those applications to get some people appointed, so.
Yep.
NELTEC is meeting in November to review those applications, so hopefully we could assign somebody before that meeting.
We can possibly, let's talk after the council meeting next Monday and see if we can set up a day to meet next
Okay.
week.
and then I'll release the RFP this week. Wednesday is fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll call you, Deputy Mayor, so I can make sure, confirm on the wording on that.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thank you. There's no more on the agenda.
Just thank you, Chief. Thank you for the numbers.
Yeah, no.
And everybody, provided a lot of information. That's a lot for us to process. Ms. Ripley?
I do have a question to Hector.
Yeah.
How'd that look?
An escape.
When you go down Sunnyside Avenue, the big, when you go up around the hill and go down Sunnyside Avenue, there's that property on the right-hand side that always grows all the
Produce.
Yeah, all the produce and stuff. Well, one of those trees, I think it's on their property, was clipped, and I don't know who did it, but the limb is still up there. If there was a big old windstorm,
Oh,
It'd probably be my vehicle it would fall on.
You're
I will take a
lucky.
look at it tomorrow.
But no favors. No favors.
None whatsoever. None whatsoever. Nope, I will look on.
But every time I drive by there, I look at that limb and think, oh, it's
Pray.
still there.
Sunnyside Avenue. I will take
Yeah.
a drive that way.
Okay, thanks.
It's where it drops, it's where it drops down the
Yeah,
hill on the south
uh-huh.
side of the hill, so.
And then it's right when you think you're safe, that's where that limb.
All right, there being no further business to come before council without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.